Welcome back. In this session we will start some scanning to detect machines that we could try to attack and also to find weaknesses. So the first thing we need to do is we need to identify the IP address of a potential target. Of course, as you know, we have the IPA command and we have the ifconfig command, which provides information about our own IP address and also our loopback and all of that. Obviously, the issue is that we don't know how to get this information from another machine on the network. Only once we are in a machine we know actually how to get this information. So once of course we get access, we could be able to obtain IP addresses, but we have to have it first to actually scan a target and also to attack a target. So how do we do this? Now on our machine we have the command netdiscover, which exactly does what the name tells you. It tries to discover machines on the network. So we use a sudo using our super user and use netdiscover and execute the scan. Now the scan can be restricted. You can specify a certain range just to make it faster, because you don't really want to go outside your network for this scan, and for obvious reasons, and I stress it here one more time, only attack your own machines. Yeah, don't attack someone else's machine, because that is definitely not legal. Yeah, so we have to stick to ethical hacking practices and of course legal practices. Now once this is now running, it now goes through various, you see that here, various IP addresses. So it just uses a default range at the moment. Of course you can target this more so that you only get really the ones you're interested in. And in my case at one point I might just stop once we are fine with it. Yeah, and just now let it run a little bit more. Okay, I think I just stop it now. I think that's more than enough. Good, so what information do you get? You have information about IP addresses and you have the so-called MAC address. Now the MAC is, I think it's called Media Access Control. You know, all these acronyms are very tricky, and honestly you don't remember what it all means. Now the MAC address is an address which is actually related to the respective network adapter. So that's basically the device that gets you into the network, and this is determined by the manufacturer. Yeah, so this is an address which is fixed and it's simply given by the manufacturer of the respective network adapter. So that's a way to identify a machine on a network. Yeah, so here we have different network addresses. So the IP address which we need, we have a MAC address, so this is basically the hardware, and then we have the name. Yeah, so for instance here that's an HP machine on it. So that's one machine. Then we have further down another machine hanging, so that's Intel Corporation. Yeah, so that's an Intel adapter used. And then we have this machine here, 178, and that, as we know already, that's my target. So that is the Metasploit on our system. The other machines are other machines I have. I have quite a few machines running at the moment. So we can also have a look at them. Again, of course you're allowed to hack your own system, but nobody else's. Good, so once we have a sense who is there, what we could try is we can always try to ping and see. That's sometimes a nice idea. We already have tried to ping our target machine, and it's working. Yeah, so nothing is stopping it, so that's pretty good. Now we can try to ping another machine. Let's go for the Intel machine and just see what we can achieve here. Okay, that also seems to be fine. Just stop that. So also here, this machine, we could potentially try to get some more information about it. Yeah, it doesn't seem to block our pinging, so that's interesting because I know this machine and there is a firewall actually running, so I'm a little bit suspicious here. But let's have another look. Okay, the first thing I want you to try, which I think is a good start before we do some heavy duty stuff, is to use Nmap. And we already used Nmap before. I use the verbose option, and I follow this by my IP address. I start first with our main target, which is 178, and run this. So that's a scan which will go through all the different ports and tests whether any port is open, and gives you some further information about this machine. So it discovers lots and lots of open port, but of course have in mind this is our Metasploit. So obviously this machine is quite rubbish. So the Metasploit obviously has lots and lots of holes in it, but that's not typical. But what you also should note here is in particular these two open services. Yeah, the FTP. So the FTP is a way to transfer data between machines, and also it works across operating systems. And the SSH, we have used SSH before. If you remember this, again we can get remote access to a machine using SSH. So these two look interesting and potentially exploitable, but there's much more that potentially can be used. We see here down there the SQL ones, so these are databases, so there's more to do most likely, but that's a good start. What I think is sometimes a useful idea is to in fact take all these scans and throw them into a file. So that's not a bad idea. So I personally like to do this and just keep it there for later use. So we use another option here, using the option for basically all the outputs. I believe it's O for all the outputs and A. But that again you can check. We can also name it. I don't know. I name it now SC for scanning. Yeah, just do that, and it will give you an output. So if you go now into this, you get 3 different outputs. You see that? So you get different file formats. You get the Nmap, so that's the main one I tend to use, the XML, and then the GNmap. So they give you slightly different formats of fundamentally the same information. I already anyway saved that, so I don't want to keep too much on my system, so I just remove it now using the wildcard, and again I check it should be now gone. And I already have all the stuff stored in my target folder. Yeah, but for you it's a good practice to save the scanned output and then create your own folder and then move it into this folder. And in this target folder I have already several scans saved. Yeah, and this is of course for exploitation. I used target, and you can have a look at this one. I just use the less command, target underscore scan nmap. So that's for our Metasploit one. And here you get an awful lot of information in a quite accessible format, so we can navigate through that. So for instance here on the FTP open port, so that's the first one we would try to exploit, you get a whole lot of information. So for instance, what you know is, and you see this in this line, that it permits anonymous login. Now the anonymous login is a default login used in FTP, which very often is not possible. Yeah, so in this case it's permitted. So this means so once you open up your FTP service, you might be able to log in using simply the name anonymous and leaving the password blank. So that is potentially something that should work based on the scan. So that's interesting. And also in here you get further information about the actual status of the server, including, you see this here, the version used. Yeah, so that gives you an idea about versions used, and also further down you have also information about various versions. This is the SSH one. So that potentially is useful information, and you can check whether a particular version used, in particular if it's outdated, has some known vulnerabilities which potentially can be exploited. Yeah, these public keys were just for information. They don't give you an awful lot, and you have a whole host of other things that you could potentially exploit. So that machine can keep you busy for a while. Yeah, of course we are not able to cover all of it, but of course in your assignment you can play around a bit more and try some further things that could be used. I have done a similar scan for the Windows machine, and I think this is under scan nmap. But you will see, of course, that's a much better protected machine, that there's far less information available. Yeah. What you also notice here is I used the PN option, and actually I might just show you this first. Let's just do that. I just do the sudo nmap. I should spell it correctly. -v, and then I now use the IP address, which I forgot. Okay, that's not helpful. Let's just go net discover first. Let me just do that one more time. I forgot now this IP address. Okay, here we are. I think that's the 175. Okay, let's just do this. Sudo net nmap. So we go to 175. So this is now a different machine. It's not as leaky as the Metasploit, and we can just have a little look what happens here. Okay, so you see that you get a note here, host seems down. If it is really up but blocking our ping, probes try -pn. Okay. Now this is an interesting output. So I try to ping, I try to get information about it, and it doesn't let me. So at the moment you don't get an awful lot from it. Yeah, so it tried and it got blocked. Okay, now what we do is exactly that. We follow this instruction. We use now another option here, -pn, and try it one more time. And you see you get some open ports here. You get 2 open ports, yeah, but not an awful lot more. Yeah, so not as easy as of course our Metasploit. What you also get is you get some information about this machine. Yeah, and what you of course see here is you have some services running, and that looks like a Windows machine. Yeah, that's a Windows machine. That you could look into, whether there is something you could exploit potentially. Yeah, again, I stored this information in my target folder, so if you read through this, you get some further information. So actually, yeah, it's a Microsoft Windows product, so that's good to know. Otherwise, of course, there is not an awful lot here. You have potentially only 2 open ports. Whether this is something you can try, one has to see. and you also see that that's a Windows operating system. Yeah, so different machine. We quit, and certainly a lot harder to hack, a lot harder. But you know, something to try. Good. So we have done all of that. So that's a good start. So next, after the Nmap scanning, where we got some ideas and we stored this information, we can do a proper scan using Nessus. Okay. So I just now move back to my home. Just for practice, I clear the screen. And now I start running my Nessus service. I just use a sudo, if I type it correctly, system control start Nessus D service. Yeah, you see that here, and I just run this. So that basically starts my Nessus service. Actually, it is most likely already running because I just used it before. And I go into the website. The same website you saw before. You log in. I'm already logged in anyway, and in here you can do a new scan. Yeah, you just click on new scan and you see a whole host of different scans. There is an awful lot. Some of it you have to upgrade. You need a professional account. You can do an awful lot of scanning here. We just do a basic network scan. That's all we need. You just give it a name. I just now use here maybe the Windows machine. So that's the second machine I tried. So that's a secure machine. I think it's secure because it has all the latest technology to protect it. And in here I put in the IP address. Yeah, again, of course, yeah, I have to check this. Let me just quickly check one more time. I just want to make sure that I don't start attacking something I don't want to attack. But this is just a security scan. It's just to have a little sniff around. So that's the 1751. Okay, I go back in here and I put it down. And 168.1.175. Okay, so that's fine. I just save it. And that should pop up here. So this is the Windows machine. The easy target is the Metasploit, and I already did a scan here, so that's fine. And you see now I launch this scan, and that will take a long time. Okay, so have in mind it will take some time. I just go in here and it will run. That can easily run for 15 minutes, 20 minutes. So don't be surprised that if that takes a while to go through all the different things. Well, this machine, as I said, is up to date, has the latest version of Windows, is always upgraded. It has a state-of-the-art firewall and McAfee security on it. So I would be very surprised if we see anything that could be done. Yeah. And in fact, here you go. So there is nothing in here. So nothing we can actually easily get to. Yeah. So that's the typical thing. So don't expect that machines are just rubbish. So usually, if you upgrade your systems all the time, if you have proper security in place, it's not as easy as it looks here. And in fact, most of the attacks are not as sophisticated as what we do here. So most things are really phishing attacks where people trick you to give information. So these hacking attacks we do here, where we target a particular machine, this is very it's not typical. It needs way too much effort. Of course, our Metasploit, as you can see, is full of problems. So this is why it's a great exercise to go through them. So it's full of issues. Yeah. So that's plenty. And you see, of course, in terms of criticality, there are plenty of critical ones. it goes across the board, yeah, from more anything you look at has some problems, yeah. So you see plenty of issues. What I just want to say is that even the ones which might be lower down, yeah, might be enough to get you in. For instance, here you have multiple issues on FTP, so we can have a look. We can see what exactly is going on. There is a server detection going on here, so that's something interesting. So for instance, in here we see the details about this particular version which we could use. So it's the VS FTPD 234. We actually will look into this a bit more carefully because it has a known problem. Yeah, and again, this is our host address here. There's another port which is open, so the 21 is the first one for FTP, and then we have 2121, which potentially could be used. Again, you have some further details here. So that's an interesting one. Yeah, you get some further nodes as well. Yeah, so the log4 shell, that's the thing currently flying around as a problem. Yeah, so that's also in our scan as well. So I think there's plenty to try. It will keep us busy for the weeks to come, and will be also a nice exercise for assignments as well, just to try them and see what happens. Quite often, as you will figure out, it won't work. Yeah, so you might try something, you have to document what you try, that's the exercise. But very often it doesn't really work, but that's perfectly normal and you just have to move on. Okay, so we have done now some scanning. We know how to identify the IP address of potential targets. We know how to use Nmap, which is kind of a useful scan just to get a feeling what is going on. What are potential ports that are open? What is running there? Is there something we could potentially exploit? And then we have seen the Nessus scan, which gives you a lot more detail, but as we also have seen, is if your machine is really up to date, most likely you will be fine and you won't find anything that you can easily exploit. And quite often, of course, the issue is also that if you have a really good and running security on your machine, that any attempts to actually ping it might be also blocked. Yeah, so it makes it a bit more difficult. But it's not the end of the world. You find always different ways to still enter a system. It's just a lot more work that needs to be done. Good. That's all for this session on scanning. I see you in our first attack, attacking our Metasploit using FTP. I see you then.